Good day to everyone. My name is Ian McCullough. I'm from the US and Canada K-12 marketing team at Turnitin, and I'm pleased to welcome back a set of panelists that we had with us in January, where we had a conversation about the horizons of rural education and sort of the unique opportunities there. And this particular conversation really emerged out of that one, where we had an hour of time and a topic started to surface and to take shape that we collectively decided we really needed to focus in on. And so we have come back together to get into the context and unique challenges of college and career readiness in rural schools. So first things first, I want to welcome our panelists, and if you can, I'll call you off and say where you're from and a little bit about what you do. We'll start with that. So we'll go reverse alphabetical order this time. Susan Schnaufer.
Yes, my name is Susan Schnaufer. I am the district technology coach for a district in southwestern New York State, Salamanca City Central School District. We're a little unique. We're a small school district, a small city school district, and we reside on a Native American reservation, which really gives us some unique opportunities and some unique challenges.
Kimberly Huff.
Hi, my name is Kim Huff. I teach English at Central High School in Park Hills, Missouri. We're about an hour south of St. Louis, and our high school has approximately 600 students there. And we have kind of we are not quite as diverse, but we have a close-knit community, and it's a great place to work.
Stacy Burgesson.
My name is Stacy Bergeson. I teach English 3 and the college English courses in Torrington, Wyoming. We're about 300 students in the 9th through 12th grades.
Great. And Andy Arnold.
Hi, my name is Andy Arnold. I teach at Caldwell High School in Caldwell, Idaho, which is about 30 miles outside of Boise, Idaho. I teach 12th grade ELA and student leadership, and our school is bigger rural. We have about 1,300 students, and we're split. Our population is about 48% Caucasian, and the other percent, 52, math is hard for me, is Hispanic. So pretty good mix there.
Indeed. So in our first session, what we really started out with to break things out for our viewers is we had an opportunity to explore each community and talk about certainly the challenges that you all face that perhaps urban and suburban schools don't have, but also the advantage and unique strengths that rural schools and rural school communities bring that add something different into the educational mix. And I think this is also a time where, in the spirit of good investigation, I have to admit my own biases as a moderator. My own experience, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I went to college in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've lived in Los Angeles, and I've called the San Francisco Bay Area home. So there are aspects to this conversation where I get the opportunity and the privilege to learn and discover something that is frankly different from my experience. And so I thank their panelists for teaching me as we go along as well. In doing a little bit of prep work, something that I want to get out of the way and dispel any confusion at all is that in terms of academic performance of the specifically high school students that we are looking at, that when we talk about college and career readiness, there's a key distinction between readiness and preparedness. And every indicator I found has shown that the high schoolers in the sorts of communities that our panelists work in are every bit as academically prepared for college and career as urban and perhaps suburban counterparts. Obviously, there are some correlations there along household income. And this notion of preparedness gets into that rural students' NAEP scores exceed students from urban locales and are consistent with town locales. suburban students, there is some positive variation there that likely, frankly, has to do with money. 23% of rural students earn dual enrollment college credits compared to only 16% nationwide, which I think was fascinating. And so I just, as we start out, let us set aside, as you know, set aside for our audience any suggestion that it's about the quality of the education that students are getting as we get into these topics. What I think we are going to explore is a series of tensions that as we try to unravel the story, there are tensions that expose themselves between the community, the family, and the individual student. And that's one aspect that I think we're going to probe into. And also just looking from the community and the school lens, the past, the present, and the future, and how does this weave together into a connection that we started to talk about between the school and the community during our last session. And so starting out, in that January session, those community ties were indeed one of the core strengths that we were able to focus in on as something that made the school experience unique and special for students. And part of those ties is also, as we look at the set of students who choose to, in considering their future, to stay local, to stay close to home, what sort of local opportunities are there? If they want to take the next step and stay within where they're at, how does that take shape? And I'm going to toss this question first to Stacy.
Sorry, I couldn't find my microphone to turn it on.
No problem.
Well, I have to say, you were talking about, and I might be deviating a little bit from where you want to go, but the preparedness versus being ready. And I notice we do have a high number of students that get quite a few college credits in high school, but we are sending them out in some cases as juniors. So they're missing that freshman experience with other college freshmen. They're going to junior level classes after being in a very small community with a lot of one-on-one attention. And they are not being successful at that level because we're sending them out at a level that academically they might be prepared for, but as far as being independent young adults, they are not. So I know that doesn't answer your question, but I just had
no, that is quite all right, because that sort of takes the topic for where we're going. Kim, you're next on my screen. Would you care to build on that or come back to the question about what is the local opportunities and why do people choose to stick around and stay?
Sure. Okay. So I think we talked a lot about last time that the community ties are very strong, and there's that family environment, and you know that you have people who are kind of pulling for you. So a lot of students want to come back and be close to their families. One thing that I kind of want to build on, I kind of agree a little bit. We have a community college close, and our students, I think we might talk about this a little bit later, but many of our students receive lots of college credit before they go on. And most of our students tend to be successful in college, but they come out of college very young because they're so far in once they start. Where in bigger schools, they tend to have AP classes. And even though they kind of work similarly, it's not quite the same, in terms of degree. So that's kind of an interesting thing. We had a 19-year-old student interviewing for a teaching job a couple of days ago. So yeah. Anyway, that aside, why do they come back? What opportunities are available? So in our area, this is something we kind of talked about before, I think, as well, that well-meaning adults tend to encourage people to go towards the industries where there are jobs here. So nursing, education, engineering, because we have factories and a lot of mining. Like our town was built on mining, and so there's lots of like engineering kind of offshoot opportunities for students, and then of course we have lots of skilled labor and that sort of thing here. So we tend to kind of lead our students along those tracks, and that's what they go out and they do that and they come back, because they know they can come back and do those jobs. when they are back in town.
And I want to open up this topic in terms of this dual credit piece. I'm already learning something. So that was something that I actually had not thought about. And so as this emerges as a topic, I want to make sure that feel free to explore it, because this is indeed one of those things that is new for me and something that I just frankly hadn't even thought about in preparing the outline script. And we need to go where the story takes us. So both of you have brought this up in terms of that dual credit piece, which seems more significant. And we'll see how that weaves in. Andy, you're up.
Yeah, so I also would love to speak about that dual credit piece as well. I currently teach dual credit in addition to the senior English. We're in the same situation, I think, as Kim just said. We're very close to a couple colleges, community colleges. Caldwell High is actually in the middle of two community colleges, and then we're about 3 minutes from a very big, formerly private university, and we're only 30 minutes away from Boise State University, which is big Idaho, blue turf. So we, our students are surrounded by higher education opportunities. And so I think that that's kind of a motivator for many of our students, but not all of our students choose that path. Some of them will go straight into skills work. We have really great, because we're more rural, we have really great skill programs, auto programs, welding programs, FFA, agriculture programs, things like to that kind of extent. But I think what I wanted to say is I think that they come back because community brings them back because they're very community motivated. So they're seeing the things that we may not have, or they're seeing the things that they want to improve upon in their community. And I think that's why they come back here to kind of speak to that question. But they're also surrounded by so many higher ed opportunities that it's almost like, how can you not go? But then some of them are definitely going too soon or getting done too quickly in the, in the maturity piece of it. Isn't that a part of that, like that component, that social emotional part as well? So I think it's a very interesting topic for sure.
I think, I think we may have webinar number 3 on the line on that one. Susan, your turn.
So I have a little bit of a different perspective on this also. I was an adjunct professor at our local community college for about 7 years, where I taught part-time. And it's interesting because I've worked in 2 different schools that offer community college credits. Where I work right now in Salamanca, we are very close to St. Bonaventure University, which is a major private university, as well as a community college. And we are very active in promoting both AP classes and classes through St. Bonaventure and our local community college. So we do have students that go out and take classes. Some of them actually leave the building to go to the university. So they're getting some different experiences there. But as a community college professor, it's interesting because I didn't really see that part of students coming that weren't emotionally prepared. So, as that was being said, I was thinking, oh yeah, we have students that are leaving with 2 to 3 semesters worth of college. I didn't see that in the program that I worked in, but it's an interesting thought, especially when you're talking about students that are going out and mixing not only with peers that are maybe a year or 2 older, but they're also mixing with a lot of adult learners at this point in our society. There's a lot of people going back to work. So there's really a melting pot out there at college of maturity levels. So it's interesting to think what the kids are going out and looking into as far as the class makeups and actually social emotionally making friends and making connections when they're so young. In our region, our kids tend to stay local because of our Native American community. That's a very family-based community. So our students tend to go to one of the local colleges. We do have another college, State University, about 30 minutes away. So a lot of our population tends to stay local or come back. We're seeing that right within our school building itself, that we are seeing a lot of returning students that have gone out and gotten degrees and come back because of the family ties. So that's a big thing, I think, for students is, where their family is, especially now with the pandemic and everything else that's been going on in our society. I think a lot of people look to stay close to family.
I think that's going to be an interesting thing as we get into one of our later sections for those who start and then move on somewhere else, and some of the distinctions there. But before we get to that, one of the things that was a very potent part of that January session, Stacy, I believe you were the one who brought it up. As we look at these community ties and just some of the harder truths and the honest truths, there was a wonderful moment of candor where we just acknowledged flat out that while there's a tremendous amount of diversity in terms of the state of various rural communities, there are a lot of rural communities that are dying. And I believe that was the word that you wound up using. And so the question that I have is, in looking at that community relationship and looking for what happens to students like yours when they move beyond, what sort of things can the community do in terms of school engagement to harness the local high school as a source of new vitality and new opportunity? Kim, I'm going to put this one to you first.
So we have a main street, and for several years, of course it was bustling and whatever. And then for several years, it was almost completely vacant. Almost every single building on Main Street was empty. And recently, in the last couple of years, there's been kind of like a revitalization. There's some new businesses coming in. There's still some empty buildings, and there's some, several secondhand shops, but there's a lot of new businesses coming in. We have a really great chamber of commerce and, a strong, I think, city organization right now, but there's a lot of kind of new breath coming in. And it's interesting because most of the people who are behind this new growth are parents of students that I currently have in high school. And so they're getting to be a part of that, and their friends are kind of a part of it. And they kind of are helping those parents fix up the buildings and, that sort of thing. And they get to see the progress from it being run down to seeing the large changes it brings. And then how many more people are in circulation on Main Street because of that. And I think that's really interesting. So I'm hopeful that the involvement of those students and just that close proximity of seeing that progress and how it happens in real time, that will encourage them, to come back and be able to do the same thing. Because when everything's empty and nobody's doing anything, it's hard to imagine that I can do that. I can go into this building and create a new business and that sort of thing. But when you see it kind of happening and coming alive in real time, and what a bit drastic difference that makes for the town, then I think hopefully it will plant some seeds for them in the future when they come back. Let's hope.
Andy, you bring an interesting perception to this, and because I know that you actually grew up around Boise, and you have made Caldwell home. And so in terms of people going somewhere new, I'm interested in your take on this particular question of how do we make these communities a place that students would want to stay?
Oh, that's a great question. So a lot of what Kim was saying, I was like, oh, hey, us too right now. We've had this huge movement, movement's not the right word, but we've had this huge kind of movement towards revitalizing our downtown Caldwell area specifically. So we have this Indian Creek Plaza. We have an ice skating rink in this in the winter, and in the summer, people come out, but we have people from all over the state coming to see us, which has never been a thing in Caldwell. It's always been seconds. People don't go to Caldwell. It's different. So we're just reinventing what it means to be someone from Caldwell. Our local businesses, which are all, of course, local people. They're people who grew up in Caldwell and people who have family and roots in Caldwell or in the Canyon County area, which is not that much bigger than just Caldwell. And it's very interesting to see that like that growth of the local community. And I think that's one of the things our students see. And even though we are not everyone's first pick, it's because they don't know us. But even like our school board just did something crazy impressive, I felt like Monday, and they made they increased the rigor intentions of our district. So they actually added requirements to graduation outside of the state standards. So we decided as a district that we needed more social studies components, and so they voted on it and had it approved to add a couple more credits so that you have to take social studies every year as well. And so it's interesting how we're focusing it, at this high school level, and then we're bringing it to the idea that we're making Caldwell a better place for Caldwell and therefore for you. So you'll come back to Caldwell and continue to make it a better place as well. I mean, we have 56 kids that graduate with advanced diplomas, which is almost like an associate's degree is what I'm getting the equivalent to. And I thought, how neat is that for an opportunity for our kids who have to work every summer in the fields for 12-hour days to help their families, and support their families. And then they get to be a part of this kind of big movement. I don't know if that answered the question. I think it did.
It does. I think it does. And it creates a whole bunch more questions. Susan.
Our school district is actually at the heart of revitalization in Salamanca. We have partnered with a lot of businesses. There's a lot of manufacturing and up and coming manufacturing type businesses in our area, not necessarily in our town, but in the local towns. And we've been partnering with those businesses to find out what skills that they are looking for in students, and then help us to teach those students through internships and just in our general business classes or STEAM classes, the skills that they're going to need to go out for the jobs that they're in our area. We just did a multi-million-dollar sports complex. It's a college level sports complex that we are working to bring more businesses into our town through the school district, through, having this complex that we can rent out to different colleges and have different sports tournaments there. So we've really been doing a lot to try to revitalize, because like both Andrea and Kimberly said, our town was pretty much run down, poverty stricken. The businesses had closed. There was really nothing but a small little supermarket and a couple restaurants that were really vibrant several years ago. And the school district really has been the center, along with the Seneca Nation, in rebuilding and making partnerships between schools and businesses to bring life back. And that's why the kids, they want to stay. So we're trying to give them skills that they can use in the local area to get a decent paying, a living wage job. Make sense?
It does. And that has a couple of themes that I think we're gonna circle back to. Stacy, it was your quote originally that I believe that spawned this thread. And so I bring it back to you. Your thoughts on this issue of vitality.
Well, we are dying. We are not thriving. And I think one of the things that we could do differently is, as parents, as educators, as community members, we are taking our high flyers, our high achievers, and we're saying, go and do and be. This is not the place for you. And we're investing a lot of time and money and effort into those students so that they can go and do and be someplace else. And not investing as much time and effort and money. Well, money's probably not a fair, I feel like we're pretty even across the board there, but a lot of time and effort into maybe our students who are maybe more trade school proficient, more, they're the hands-on, they're the, we don't invest in them maybe to the level that we need to make this community a more thriving, growing community. We have a lot of coal around here, but here in my little neck of the woods, we are mostly farmers and ranchers. And to to take on the family farm and ranch, you're probably also taking on the family farm and ranch debt, which is in some cases millions of dollars. With the economy, I think it's going to be interesting to see what COVID actually does in 10, 15 years for our students, because some of them like that small town life, they like that small town community, but to be successful, at least around here, that means you're making big bucks. You're not going to make big bucks in our small little retirement community, really. We don't have a bowling alley. We don't have a skating rink. We don't have a place for the kids to hang out. I mean, our local Walmart is almost an hour away. Same for the bowling alley, you know. So what do we have for our kids here to keep them here? What's the draw? Even for a young adult, a single young adult, we do have a community college, and the joke is, yeah, you're going to attend the university up the hill, because it doesn't have a lot of credit. You know, it just doesn't. Oh, you go from Torrington High School to EWC, you know, and that's the attitude, not of the students as much as parents, education staff, community members. So what message are we sending them? And I worry, especially being aware of this situation and seeing kind of some of the trends. And I don't know how to get my message out to people to say, you know, we want to keep our biggest, brightest here with us, as well as investing in maybe those students that we think, oh, you'll work at the local grocery store, you're just, you know, and instead of saying just, like, you are going to be a part of this community, you're going to help it grow and thrive and make us better.
That's a tough challenge. Thank you for sharing. All right, I'm going to stick with the question I have, but hold that thought, because Stacy, I'm coming back to you, because some of that I think is indeed the perceptions and attitudes. In the meantime, though, Andy, I have a question coming to you to start with. College and career counseling resources, guidance counselors. In doing a little bit of digging, is that a resource that Caldwell is able to offer?
Yes, actually, and it's interesting that you asked that, because it's just recent, within the past couple of years, really, that we not only have one, but now we have two. So we have two college and career readiness counselors. Their sole responsibility is to work with our students to help find funding for them, help them get these AP dual credit classes, help them take, the SATs. We actually have an entire SAT day where we have we fund every single junior to take the SAT. So I don't know, I'm sure that's common everywhere, but I thought it was weird. I mean, rare. So we have that opportunity that our college and career counselors kind of put on. And then we have this really amazing resource called the Trio Upward Bound program that we work with. And they have a couple of teachers who sit in our building who are not paid by the district. They're paid from a local university through a grant, but they come in here and they work with small groups, small class sizes of 12, maybe 15 kids. And they work with their scholarships, job applications, resume building, college exploration. They take them on trips to colleges. So we are incredibly blessed. And I don't know what happened or why we got the money to do these things, but it's all very recent. And our kids, I believe, are thriving because we've been able to offer these opportunities outside of just, here's what Caldwell is doing. In fact, one of my students just won a $10,000 scholarship because of this program, like in all the things she has. So $10,000. And I thought, oh, I don't even know what that's like. I had to pay for my own college, but $10,000, girl, you didn't go anywhere. So we have great resources.
Stacy, I'm going to bounce this one back to you for potentially some contrast based on what we're saying. Are there career counseling and resources available for your students in Torrington?
There are not anymore. And I don't mean for Torrington to sound like this terrible place. It's really not, I promise. It's just,
you wouldn't be here speaking with us if it was.
Exactly. It's just not a good place to thrive as a young adult. Maybe that's what I should say. Like our college, our juniors and seniors, there's not a lot of opportunity right here. So we did have a person that was assigned to our school, and maybe it was our district. So we have 3 high schools in our district. Each one is roughly 20 minutes away from my high school. They're significantly smaller than what we are here in Torrington. And the one who was here when I started, she would do a lot of the things that were just mentioned, help them with resumes and scholarships and some of that kind of stuff. I will say Wyoming really does, as when it comes to money, we invest in our students. We have what's called the Hathaway Scholarship. And as long as they attend one of the Wyoming colleges or the University of Wyoming, it pays for the first 4 years of college, a good chunk, well, most all your tuition and a good chunk of your books, regardless of what field you go into. So lots of opportunities as far as continuing in their education. Career-wise, probably not so much.
Interesting. And yeah. Susan?
We actually have 3 guidance counselors in our high school. And they do quite a bit with our students as far as bringing college speakers in. We have some social workers. We have some workers that specifically work with our Native American population to get them ready for applying for scholarships. We just had one young man win a really nice scholarship to a nice university. Because of all the help that we give them. We do have our local community college has a representative in our school that works with students just to prepare them to be college and career ready and to be successful in high school. We also, through our STEAM program, bring in a lot of career people to speak to students on different careers that are available, maybe not right in the immediate vicinity, but locally enough that they're not moving out of state or across state to be able to participate in those careers based on the STEAM trainings and classes that we have. So we do a pretty good job getting students ready to go off to college just with those types of resources. So that's a good thing. And we do have quite a few students that do get some type of scholarship because of the help that they receive at school.
It's interesting to me in some of your comments where we talk about STEM and STEAM a lot in sort of like the elementary and middle school grades, and how it sounds like Salamanca City has actually, taking the STEAM acronym and kind of blurred and blended it together with another important acronym in K-12 education, which is CTE.
Yes.
And so there seems to be a continuity of programming there.
Yeah, we actually took a big leap and put a huge STEAM edition on a couple of years ago. We hired a STEAM coach, and we've actually won numerous regional and national awards for our STEAM program. So we have a very vibrant STEAM program, which is one of our shining stars. And it's really been to help our students be able to go out and break the cycle of poverty and be able to get a living wage job in the area because of the partnerships that we've created and the training that they're getting in high school.
Kim, over to you in terms of college and career counseling and guidance resources.
So we have 2 guidance counselors, and they're kind of like, they're all purpose. I mean, they do everything, they help students kind of plan their path. We have students start choosing we have like a Missouri pathways, and students start choosing like the pathways. There's, like health and education and industry and just different like pathways. And they start choosing those in like the 6th grade, and they kind of either stay in that path along that path because that's where their interest lies, or they kind of like, change it up. But each year we kind of revisit it and they check it out, and the counselors kind of help with that. And then I feel like we have a really nice kind of balance, and I wish we could do more, but like our balance, we have a JAG program, which is Jobs for America's Graduates. And our students learn, a lot of the how to interview, how to do resumes, things like that. And they go on trips and The program actually sets up internships for our manufacturing companies in the area. So a lot of our students get to go, and they promise to hire our students first for that. Like if they go and they're good at the internship, they like promise to save jobs for them, which I think is really awesome. We just started that a couple of years ago. And we have our community college that they only charge our students a third of the tuition so that students can afford it, so they can get their credits at a third of the cost than what they would pay later. We also have A+, which is a Missouri thing, but it will pay for the first 2 years of like a community college for free if you have certain test scores and you have a good attendance and things like that. And then every 3 or 4 years or so, we have this career presentation, which I think is really fun, where every teacher in the building asks a friend in a different career to come and give a presentation on what their career is and kind of like the path that they took to get there and some of the struggles and what they do on a daily basis. And it's always really interesting. The kids get to choose 4 or 5 to go to, and the kids love it. And I think that's a really good thing too. But I would really love to have more of an immersive, I wish we were a little bigger so that our kids who are more technically, we do have a Unitech that they go to that has like robotics programs and things like that. But those students, I wish that they could have, maybe their English is more geared towards that, and their math, more supports their construction and their automotive, and like it kind of goes along or kind of as hand in hand. And I know bigger schools do that a lot. So.
Okay, we've actually spent a healthy amount of time kind of almost talking about community economic development and how career options and keeping the community vital has unfolded in some places, and unfolded and seems to be taking a turn in one direction for another. And then Stacy providing some contrast on this, where there continue to be places that struggle. And again, I thank you all for your candor in this. I do want to focus in a little bit on the question of college, which in our time here, my own perception is evolving because of this dual credit question. And I think this may inform this in ways that I was not quite expecting. I regularly peruse, because I'm just that type of person, the National Center for Education Statistics, the Digest of Education Statistics. I mean, I have to keep an eye on patterns and what's going on in schools. And something that is always of note to me is just the number of students nationally, as a national baseline. I think we're up to 32% of Americans over the age of 25 nationally have a bachelor's degree or more, which I find that fascinating because I went to college and most of the people I know have a college education. That's 1 out of 3. In diving into this topic, one of the things that the statistics are pretty clear on, NCES table 104.25, for those who care to go digging, is that in urban and suburban area, it's about 36% of people over the age of 25 have a bachelor's degree or more, but in towns and rural areas, it's about 23%. Starting with Susan on this one, how should we interpret that statistic? Is there something that we're not seeing there? Is there attitudes about college attendance? What's going on with that story?
I almost wonder if you're seeing it higher in the urban areas because that's where the employment is for bachelor's, people with bachelor's degrees. You have a higher concentration of jobs that require advanced degrees probably in your urban areas where, there are people who will travel and they want to live rurally, they'll travel into cities. But travel takes up a lot of your life, so there's a lot of people that if they're going to invest the time and the money into an advanced degree, they may want to work close to where they're going to be able to use those advanced degrees. However, I'm going to throw this in the mix. I think that telework is going to change those statistics. I think through the pandemic, a lot of companies have realized that workers are very effective from working from home in a lot of industries. And I think you may see those numbers change based on the fact that companies are going to be a lot more liberal in their work from home policies.
Good. Kim, your insights on the seeming gap there.
I agree, of course, with all of that, but I also think for our area, sometimes, how should I put this delicately? Sometimes students will not, even though they might want to go to college, they either don't attend because they don't have money to attend. Their parents might sometimes dissuade them, because I know in my personal experience where I graduated from the school that I teach at, my parents did not want me to go to college. They said that it would change me and make me, a different person in a bad way, or change my values. And I know several students who have experienced the same exact conversation with their parents. I think parents who did not attend college don't know what to expect, and they're scared. And so they think they have this maybe idea of what it is that it's not. And then I think something else outside of that, there are more jobs in the urban areas, is a lot of students don't want to leave their families. It is a close knit, families are very, very close, and homesickness is overwhelming for a lot of students. They don't want to think about leaving, or they do leave and they might come back because they just can't stand being away from their family. And that's pretty common as well. But I think ultimately it's because there's more jobs outside of the area, but I think that those also are big factors in a smaller area sometimes.
Stacy.
I really agree with Susan. I think it's mostly because we are not close enough to, you couldn't live rurally here in Torrington and be close enough for a plethora of high paying or higher degree jobs. We just don't have it. But I also have to agree with Susan. I wonder what COVID and telework and remote work is going to do in the future for students or professionals who prefer to live in a more rural community. My son is in Twin Falls, which is a smaller community as well, and he is working for an accounting company in Texas. And Twin Falls is significantly cheaper. The company is fine with him. They keep saying, yeah, eventually we want you to come. Eventually we want you to come. But as long as we've got remote and telework, you guys do it on your timetable. So I'm kind of curious to see where we're going to be in the next few years.
I mean, in terms of somebody who currently lives in the San Francisco Bay Area, which has a very high cost of living, we're getting ads from, and not to set off like any sort of battle between coal states in the form of Wyoming and Missouri and West Virginia, but West Virginia is promoting the fact that they are offering people like $10,000 tax incentives to just come and telework from West Virginia, and this is really a thing in terms of that opportunity piece. Andy. In terms of what you are seeing and experience in Caldwell, where again you have you are still a rural area, but you have these access here. So for audience members, and this is a sequel, I think it's fair to say that our dear Andrea here sometimes gets a little bit of imposter syndrome, where it's like we have a Starbucks. So.
No, exactly. Thank you for at least making me feel like I'm not an imposter. Kim, what Kim was saying too about that need for kids not to leave home. It's scary for students to leave and to go away. And it's easier for them to stay. Like I said, Caldwell is between two community colleges and 30 minutes from a huge university. So it's easy to stay close. But then we get in this trap of what if I do something better than my family, if I leave for too long or go too far away, then I can't help them. And that's a very big dynamic that we have here at Caldwell. We will have kids who miss school because they have to watch their siblings. We have kids who can't go to that because they are playing mom for the evening. And it is a very, very big kind of issue and dynamic here, that we have students taking care of grandparents and of parents and of siblings, and if they leave, then somebody is going to be affected negatively, is the mindset that a lot of my students have. And there are some who are like, no, I'm leaving so I can do better things for them. But it's really easy to get sucked back into that. But if you stay, you're helpful now versus seeing the outcome in the future. They only see the temporary fix of this problem. They don't get to see past that. And that's a real struggle that my students have, because they're all driven. They all want to do so many things, but the reality of family and obligation and money. Like I have a student right now who was debating whether or not he's going to graduate or just get his GED because he has to go to work right now. And that's his most important priority, is to make money. And I thought, no, you just finished school. But it's a very real issue for our kids.
It's interesting to me because I was gonna, much like the dual credit factor is an interesting piece where in certain respects, the rural students have pressures that force them to grow up faster, perhaps faster than whatnot. Same with the family financial pressures, which we could again spend a whole nother hour talking about. Like that is a huge topic in the considerations, and something that as I had a whole series of questions, hearing you talk about the various financial supports that come at the state level and the local level that do create options in some of your cases, even if it is the college up the hill. That's heartening to me. As I keep an eye on the clock, there's something that I do also want to focus in on here. And Kim, I'm going to start with you because clearly this is a personal topic for you and you've got a story. We do encounter, and so I actually looked into this where it looks like about 50%, based on some of the polling I've seen, of rural parents do want their kids to go to college, which, based on some stereotypes, is higher than expected. But that still leaves 50% where either due to financial pressure, which is, again, very real. That's national headlines where we're talking about the cost of higher education, and values concerns. There can be a tension between students and their families, which you seem to have some firsthand experience in here, between the possibility of going away to college as that next future step. And what is the most constructive role, in your view, for teachers to play in those sorts of tensions? How do you approach that with a student or with a parent, or do you stay out of it? What's the best way to proceed?
Oh, I think probably it partly depends on how well you know the student, how well you know the parents and that sort of thing. But I think having a personal story that's like theirs in that situation is helpful, because for my family, I'm the first person on both sides of my family to go to college and graduate with a degree. And I can say to them, it was worth it. For me, education was a way out of poverty and instability and things like that. And now I can actually be there for my family more now that I'm a stable, adult who can take care of myself and has a good job. And, my parents are getting older now, and now they actually do need me. Before it was like, we need you. We don't want you to go. What will we do without you? And and I think, I don't know how many parents mean to dump that guilt onto their student or their children, but even if they don't do that, like Andy was saying, those students internalize, my family needs me to help take care of them. And I think as educators, we can just say, you need to take care of yourself. It's like the mask analogy. You need to take care of yourself and get yourself to a place where you can stand on your own feet by yourself. And then you can help your family. You can be there for your family more than if you're just kind of floundering with them from now until who knows when. I think if we can tell our students that, it's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to get what you want, so that you can come back and pour back in what you have. You can't pour what you don't have.
Susan, do you have any experience with those sorts of cases as well?
I, like him, am the first person in my family to be educated above high school level. It was a mission of my parents to make sure that I did get that education. So it is tough when you're talking to kids and students, and costs are such a big concern. I every day when I talk to kids and parents, and especially former students, and hear the type of debt that they've undertaken, it makes me sad that, we're allowing students to take on 50, 70, $100,000 worth of debt to go to college. I don't think that's right. I think that as a society, we've got something wrong there. I think everybody should be able to go to college if they feel that that's what they want to do and that's right for their situation. And again, going back to the telework, I wonder too, if possibly college educations might not be more accessible while you're staying in a remote area helping your family. I know before the pandemic, a lot of colleges had started a lot of online programs. There's a lot of the online degree programs out there. You have to be a certain type of student to be able to accomplish that. And I also really think that college is not for everybody. I think that, there are lots of paths in life. College is one of them. And there are a lot of ways. I think everybody needs to be educated. I think an educated society is a very important thing, but education comes in many ways. And I think it's important to know the student and the parents and help them decide what's right for them before taking on a lot of debt that might be hard on a family, like Kim said.
Andy.
I just think it's super interesting, the dynamic of our panel here as well, because I'm also a first generation college graduate, the first person in my family on all sides that completed. Both my parents started, but no one completed college anywhere in my family history. So I think it speaks volumes to the kind of people that want to help students, because that's why we're here, right? We have insight. And all the things that both Kim and Susan have said so far, and I'm sure Stacy will say some of the similar things. Maybe not. I'm not selling you yet. But I do think that it's very interesting to talk about that idea that we as a society have really promoted the idea that you must go on to college. And for me, it wasn't an option. My father was very adamant. I'm a single father. Like, I will go to college. You're going to go when you go to college. And so I am still paying off my student loans. With that said, I had a meeting. I had parents reach out to me not too long ago and said, can we talk? Neither of us went to college. We want to give our daughter the opportunity. What do we do? So we met at a coffee shop, because we have one. And we made a poster board. And I said, fill it out. What's closest to home? Go mileage, go programs you want. How much is it going to cost? And really look at it. And she didn't go to dream school. She's choosing to go to closer school with financial aid that has the program that she really wants. And I thought, not all the kids have that opportunity, but what a great thing for her parents to feel like they could reach out to me. So maybe, Ian, to answer your question, it's also the education part of it for families. Maybe that's kind of the things that we're missing here when we promote, but we don't offer parents the insight to guide them, to help guide their children. I mean, a lot of these parents are just as naive to the situation as we were when we started. So I think that that's really something to think about.
And then Stacy, the view from Torrington on this one.
So while I'm not a first generation college graduate, my mom only beat me by a few months. So she had worked at a potato warehouse. She had some health issues, and so she had some help financially to go back because she could no longer do the job she did. So as Kim said, there's a story. I think sharing our stories with our students is part of it. As Susan said, there are pathways, and college is not necessarily for everyone, but being supportive, not just of, you want to do a trade school? Awesome, do a trade school. You want to go to college? Great. You're going to work on the family farm? How can I help you? being supportive across the board in that way. I have had several students who have said, well, but the math teacher wants me to be an engineer when I really want to be a nurse. But he says that that's not a quality career, but it's really what I want to do. So there's also being supportive in their choices and what they want to do for a career, because you know what? It takes all of us to make a community run. That's incredibly, incredibly important. And then again, as Andy said, I think that there's something to be said for building a personal relationship with our students so that they feel like if they are a first generation or even a second generation, or if they are the ones who are actually, I had one student who, she had a baby, she was a senior, she had a baby, not married. Mom and dad were both in prison for drug and alcohol use, and she had two younger brothers that she was trying to raise. This is gonna make me cry. I don't know that she ever went and got any kind of secondary education, but she bought one of our local restaurants and she has done phenomenal with it. And when the kids say, I can't do it, I say, you look at little Miss Carly and yes, you can. Yes, you can. And so having that relationship and having those stories to share with your kids, to share with your students, like, it says a lot. It says a lot, and it shows that they can do it if they want to. And to know that they have that support, I think is huge. It's huge. So I don't buy their excuses. That same year, I had 3 weeks before graduation, I had 7 seniors drop out of school because they had to help with the family finances. Like, there was no food. It's where they were. And so, I mean, it's huge. It's a huge issue, and it's not something that's going to solve overnight.
I think, as I have an eye on the clock, that is a potent and poignant note to move to our conclusions on. And thank you for your truth and vulnerability in that. I think that dovetails very powerfully into, I always like to finish webinars to the best extent we can with a piece of practical advice from our panelists. And Stacy has set up my question perfectly, which is, at the end of the day, in my view here, this question of college and career readiness is ultimately about how do we support the students in their life journey. So as you look and speaking to educators like yourself, what is your practical advice, if you have one piece of practical advice to extend out? And Stacy, I'm just going to hand it right back to you to finish that one out, and then we'll go one by one. What is it that you think that other rural educators dealing with these sorts of challenges and dealing with students who face these sorts of life contexts should know and do?
I don't know how practical this advice is, but I think one of the things that we have shown is that educators in rural communities, and I can't speak for bigger communities because I've never even lived in one, so I don't know, but we wear many, many hats. And I think my advice would be, if you're getting into education in a rural community for the money, maybe pick a different career. Because we do it for our students. We do it because we want them to be successful. We love them. We love them, and we want them to go and do and be happy. And if they can do that, regardless of what they're doing, that's what I want them to do.
Great. Andy, your practical or actionable advice?
I think it's okay to love your kids in the most teachery way possible, because let's face it, we've all watched the news and it's all terrible things sometimes. But that idea that it's okay to build relationships with the students and their families. It's okay to let them in and to know things about you as well, because that is why we become educators. The ones that come for the money, they don't stay. They're not here anymore. But we are, because we're here for the students and for their families. We are their biggest advocates. So it's okay to love those kids, be their biggest advocate. That's what they need.
Susan.
Yeah, again, the relationship piece and knowing the students and telling families, it's okay to go to college, or it's okay to choose a different path. I know for so many years, we as educators really were trying to get students to go to college and on to higher education. But I firmly believe, and I've had 3 go through college, and my next 2, one is going to go, and I'm very sure the other one's going to go to trade school. It's okay. It's okay to make choices as long as you can become a contributing part of society. And I think that's really what kids got to hear, that choice is there and it's okay to make those choices.
All right, Kim, bring us home.
I think I agree with all of that. And I would say be excited with them and for them, whatever they choose. And another thing is, as a teacher, as an English teacher anyway, when I have them write about things, I try to give them opportunities, different opportunities that play kind of to their strengths. You know, some students are just better hands-on, presentation wise, or volunteering somewhere, or creating something, or, you know, like try to give them some opportunities and variety, but also give them an opportunity to make connections with the curriculum and also with what they want to do. So if they want to be a welder or a pipe fitter or something like that, and you're doing a short little research thing, have them go out and find, you know, a new skill or a sort of tool that, you know, they might use, and you know, and then be excited with them when they find out new information about what they want to do with their future. Get excited with them, and I think that's the main thing.
That's our time. And once again, we're left with a conversation that leaves a tremendous amount of open questions. I've got a variety of resources that I looked into in preparing for this that I'll post in the notes on the recording landing page, and you know, attendees will get a copy of the recording. Andy, Susan, Stacy, Kim, thank you all so very much for your time and insights, and for taking me on this journey as well. It is eye-opening and heart-opening, and I think it is wonderful as we look at the full field of human potential, how the steps that you four and educators like you can take to whether those dreams take your students down the block and down Main Street, or to some other destination where they keep home in their heart. Thank you for doing what you do. And for everyone else, keep an eye on our webinar schedule at turnitin.com events. We've got more upcoming conversations and look forward to having you join us for those. Thank you very much.
Thank you.